How are you doing, you wonderful nerds? Normally I cover superheroes on this show, but Archie Comics are a staple of American culture as one of the longest running and most successful publishers in the comic book industry. While the company has published other comics involving Sonic the Hedgehog, Mega Man, and a couple other superheroes and anthologies, the company gets its name from their most famous creation, a red-haired teen named Archie Andrews. Even if you've never read a story featuring Archie, Betty, Veronica, Jughead, or the rest of the Riverdale gang, you probably have at least heard of them and know the basic idea. Small-town teens who usually face everyday problems that usually get fixed quickly and comically and usually have no bearing on the next story. There's hardly a sense of continuity, and in its place is a sense of consistency. You pick up an Archie comic, you know what you're getting. Everyday problems doesn't describe every story, though. Riverdale has seen magic, aliens, superheroes, sharknadoes, and more. For most of its history, Archie Comics were simply kids' stories that refused to grow up, both literally and figuratively. That is, until recent years, when Archie started to tackle more mature contemporary themes, diversifying Riverdale's inhabitants, and bring these characters into the modern world. This change in course culminated in the reboot of Archie and Pals in 2015 that has been overall well received. I know my buddy Jeff from Mother's Basement loves the direction of the new Archie Comics and especially loves the CW's Riverdale show, so much so that he made a video about how great it is on his channel.
Those are lies, Scott. Lies and slander.
Yeah. Well, it was a long, sad, and strange road from Archie's debut back in Pep Comics number 22 from 1941 to the comic book reboot and Riverdale show. The story involves a couple of business folk cashing in on popular trends, a pair of untimely deaths, spies, intimidation, sexual harassment allegations, and multiple lawsuits that created a toxic battle for the company's soul. Plus, there's a story about someone shouting penis a lot, so you'll at least want to stick around for that. But to set the stage, let's talk about two families at the heart of Archie Comics, the Goldwaters and the Silverclights. John L. Goldwater was a New York orphan who hitchhiked around the country during the Great Depression, working mostly as a reporter when he wasn't too busy being a ladies' man. Eventually, he found himself back in New York where he started a shipping company called Periodicals for Export Incorporated, with an interesting idea. Goldwater would buy old magazine issues from publishers for cheap and sell them overseas for a decent profit, but he would need a magazine publisher with whom to partner. Enter Louis Silverclight. Silverclight had a ton of experience working for and even creating his own publishing companies for pulp magazines. The two struck a deal to work together and saw a surprising successful business. Unfortunately, their success was short-lived, thanks to a war brewing in Europe that would make international shipping a little bit tricky. Goldwater and Silverclight continued to work together as the two men witnessed the phenomenal popularity of a brand new comic book about an alien dressed in brightly colored spandex who would fight as the champion of the oppressed. The comic book superhero market exploded as Superman stories started flying off the stands, figuratively. Of course, Superman couldn't fly when he first debuted. He could jump real high. Goldwater and Silverclight saw, along with many other publishers, that the superhero comic book market was where the money was. Together, along with Maurice Coyne, a business manager who worked closely with Silverclight, they set off on their new business venture. With their powers and names combined, they formed MLJ magazines in 1939. During the company's first 3 months, they launched 3 anthology titles: Blue Ribbon Comics, Top Notch Comics, and Pep Comics. The latter is where the superhero The Shield was introduced, that patriotic superhero that predates Captain America and is actually part of the reason why Cap uses that iconic round shield. It was originally triangular, as I'm sure we all know, but was so close to the shield's design that the creators of Cap changed it to something a little more unique. And as much as MLJ wanted the Shield to be their favorite creation by putting him on every cover of Pep Comics when it started, he simply could not compete with a red-haired teen and his pals who debuted in the 22nd issue. Co-created by John L. Goldwater, Bob Montana, and Vic Bloom, Archie Andrews made his first appearance alongside Jughead Jones and Betty Cooper. In a time when superheroes were popping up left and right and dominating culture, they looked to the Andy Hardy movies as inspiration for a non-super relatable person. The stories involving the Riverdale gang were a surprise hit. Even though the Shield kept appearing solo on the covers of Pep Comics, Archie's popularity could not be ignored. The two started sharing the covers in 1944 with a series of images that continually showed how Archie was Simply better. The shield would lift Archie up on his shoulders, announcing him as victorious, and even build a monument to the kid. It was bizarre, and I love it so much. The shield started getting smaller and smaller on each cover until Pep Comics number 51, where Archie took over the covers completely. And in 1946, between issues number 55 and 56, MLJ magazines became Archie Comics publications, permanently changing the company name to reflect their most iconic creation. Like when National Comics briefly branded themselves as Superman DC before just being called DC Comics, reflective of the title where Batman debuted. There's more to that story, we made a video about it. Moving on. It wasn't long before the Archie Universe started to explode with new characters and ideas that would settle into the standard for the series for decades to come. When Archie debuted, he went by the nickname Chick and wanted to impress the girl next door, Betty Cooper, who only found him annoying. Veronica Lodge came into the picture a few issues later, establishing the classic love triangle that would be a consistent driving force of the plot. As the years went on, other characters like Josie and the Pussycats and Sabrina the Teenage Witch found themselves in Riverdale. There was even a Saturday morning cartoon that, while only lasting 17 episodes, created a real-life #1 hit single, Sugar Sugar.
Sugar. Aw, honey, honey. You are my candy girl, and you got me.
Nope, not that one. Well, close enough. Archie Comics were so popular that they were regularly outselling Marvel's Fantastic Four at the height of the Stan Lee, Jack Kirby era. Archie wasn't selling expansive universes of spandex-clad superheroes or experimental storytelling art pieces. They were selling consistency. Assembly line narratives with a unified art style developed by Dan DeCarlo. The stories were so simple and cookie-cutter that there was even an issue where they broke down exactly how to write them beat for beat in Archie Pals and Gals number 34. It ironically follows a basic and generic plot while ending with the phrase, "Variety is the spice of life." That sentiment does not seem to be true for the characters of Riverdale, as Bart Beatty wrote in his spectacular book, 12 Cent Archie. Quote, "The goal of Archie Comics was not to produce a widely disparate set of stories, but to provide readers with virtually the same material month after month, with only as much variation as would be required to keep them coming back for more." End quote. And this worked for a while, but it also made the characters and stories rather stale. Eventually, sales would start to drop. In 1983, both John L. Goldwater and Louis Silverclight retired from the Archie Comics business. In their place, they left the company to their sons, Richard Goldwater and Michael Silverclight. To maintain the legacy that their fathers established, Richard and Michael didn't want to change a thing. Archie, Jughead, and the rest of the Riverdale gang would remain more or less stories for children, fearful that venturing outside of what was already established would risk the integrity of the Archie brand. As one example, there was an unlicensed play titled Archie's Weird Fantasy, which featured the character coming out as gay. Richard and Michael could not let this stand, so they sent the play a cease and desist the night before the show's debut, thinking that it would tarnish the Archie image. This creative stifling only led sales to diminish further, and it's conceivable to think that if nothing changed, Archie Comics might have died out for good. Then, between 2007 and 2008, both Richard and Michael died of cancer. Although tragic, their deaths would set the stage for an updated Archie, saving the company and bringing the characters of Riverdale into the modern world. But first, there would be a toxic rivalry that would result in severe and somewhat hilarious allegations. To keep the Archie dynasty alive, the void at the company, left by Richard and Michael, was filled by Nancy Silverclight, Michael's widow, and John Goldwater, with no H, Richard's half-brother. Both Nancy and John were pretty unqualified. Nancy was an elementary school art teacher, and John had a career in music management. And from minute one, the two feuded over Archie like Betty and Veronica. Nancy, again being a teacher, wanted to secure the Archie brand as stories aimed specifically towards children, to encourage literacy, instill a love of reading, and combat bullying. Her motto, according to her website, is "Children plus comics equals reading, knowledge, and confidence." John, on the other hand, saw Archie as irrelevant in today's society. He recalled a story where he was reading a few Archie comics on a train. A woman sat down next to him, took a look at the comics, and remarked, "Archie? Wow. They still make those?" John knew from that point forward that the company needed to be reworked, from what kinds of stories they were telling to how they would distribute those stories. Under this new leadership, Archie Comics introduced new ideas, like the character of Kevin Keller, the first gay character in Riverdale, Life with Archie, which would explore slightly more mature themes than readers had seen in those comics, and even the simple concept of distributing their comics digitally. Kevin Keller's first appearance in Veronica number 202 would receive a second printing, which was unprecedented for Archie Comics at the time. Life with Archie was also a huge hit, and the company became the first major American publisher to offer same-day digital releases of their comics, something that new comics fans might take for granted nowadays. All of this happened despite Nancy's input, who reportedly hated all of these ideas. But when she stopped teaching and started working at Archie full-time, things began to get crazy as she and John battled for the control of the company's direction. The work environment at Archie Comics around this time was absolutely next level bonkers in the worst way possible. That is, if any of these allegations are to be believed, and I think that's important to keep in mind going forward. Most of this is alleged behavior, but it's way too crazy not to at least mention. Nancy claimed that John and the other employees conspired to push her out of the company simply because they didn't like her. But if any of this is true, they kinda had a lot of good reasons. Nancy Silverclight reportedly wanted longtime employees fired based solely on their appearance, age, or weight. She allegedly wanted her dog to be given free rein to poop wherever it wanted in the office. There were claims that she hired a member of Hell's Angels to come to the office and intimidate employees, although some reports say that it was the former football player Howard Jordan. Honestly, I don't know, it could have been both. Her former assistant claimed that she asked him to spy on everyone, to dig up dirt, but he refused, later explaining, quote, "This woman is trying to kill the company for her own purposes. It's the worst job experience of my life." End quote. Everyone around the office expressed the opinion that Nancy was mentally unstable, unreasonable, and prone to tantrums. The best example of this behavior is when she allegedly stormed into a meeting, pointed at each attendee, and yelled, "Penis, penis, penis, penis," and then walked out. Some reports claim that she did the same stunt in 2010, but added the phrase, quote, "My balls hurt." There were also claims that she would refer to male employees as penises instead of their actual names. Whether or not all that actually happened is beyond me, but literally every employee backed up the claims of her, let's say, unusual behavior. There were lawsuits and countersuits shooting back and forth. The whole thing was an enormous, complicated mess. I'll have more info in the description below, but I would be remiss not to read this one statement from the case itself so you can get a feeling of just how much people did not like Nancy Silverclight. Quote, "While World War II, the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan did not stop the publication of Archie Comics, the warlike attitude and approach of Nancy Silverclight may destroy Archie Comics, unless the court intervenes." End quote. I mean, you gotta appreciate that language. It's so dramatic. Nowadays, Nancy doesn't do much for the company as a largely powerless co-CEO. With Archie entering the modern era under Goldwater, the company started seeing success in praise for their new comics, even the strange ones like the crossover with Kiss. In fact, at a book signing for Archie Meets Kiss, one of the co-producers of the TV show Glee, Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa, turned up to geek out about the book. As a lifelong Archie fan, he pitched the idea of a Glee in Riverdale crossover. Goldwater loved the idea so much that the two made it happen, becoming great friends in the process. Later, Aguirre-Sacasa would pitch the idea of a zombie apocalypse story revolving around the Riverdale gang. Goldwater immediately approved, and the acclaimed Afterlife with Archie hit shelves in 2013. Its success led to Aguirre-Sacasa being given the title of Chief Creative Officer of Archie Comics. Also, fun fact, you remember that play about Archie coming out of the closet that got shut down by Richard Goldwater and Michael Silverclight? Aguirre-Sacasa was the man who wrote it. Same diehard fan who got a cease and desist for tampering with the Archie brand years before was suddenly a major part of the company. Awesome. In 2015, Archie Comics rebooted. Unlike other comic book reboots where continuity was making it hard for new and even current readers to follow the stories, Archie rebooted to cement the idea they were about to embrace change. They wanted to show that they were willing to go all in and give the characters a fresh coat of paint with a stellar creative team of Mark Waid and Fiona Staples. As titles like Jughead, Betty and Veronica, Life with Kevin, and more started coming out, it was clear that the Archie Comics brand was strong once again. So strong, in fact, that the CW picked up an Archie show that Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa co-produced with Greg Berlanti called Riverdale, which premiered its first episode earlier this year. And boy, it is just swell. Right, Jeff?
No, it's really not. I'm a fan of a few other CW adaptations, especially The Flash, but
this is not really Archie at all. It's just this typical teen melodrama that bears only a passing resemblance to the original comics. It's basically the Gotham of Archie, which also explains why it's such a good hate watch when you're drunk with friends. It's especially disappointing given how well they've done with the new run of Archie Comics. I mean, those are also written like a teen soap opera, but a good one where the teenagers actually act like teenagers while still staying true to their original archetypes. Or Archie-types? I am so sorry for that. Even before their big reboot, Archie Comics had been taking big risks. Like you said, Life with Archie, Afterlife with Archie, and Kevin Keller coming out as gay were all huge departures from the norm. And their Archie vs. Predator event uses the classic homogenized Dan DeCarlo art style in conjunction with some absolutely shocking and hilarious blood and gore to create a bloodbath that would not be out of place in the pages of Mad Magazine. So it's baffling that Riverdale plays things so safe, miring itself so deeply in cliched TV formula that the original material disappears almost entirely. As a longtime fan, I couldn't be more disappointed.
Thanks, Jeff. Honestly, I was never a big Archie fan growing up. I just wasn't exposed to much of it. I always associated it as stories belonging to a simpler and largely manufactured period in American history. But that mindset overlooks the other, arguably more important period of time that the characters represent. Even when the gang was transported into stories set in distant historical time periods, whether that be ancient Egypt or Rome, the teens of Riverdale were just that. Teens. This creates an interesting paradox with Archie Comics. One's teenage years are known for being a time of change and transformation, yet Archie and the gang remained in their teens, unchanged, for decades. But as we've seen, Archie in the past few years has started to finally grow up. And I can't wait to see what a clumsy redheaded teenager from the 1940s and his friends from Riverdale can bring to a modern world.
Sugar,
Honey, honey.
you are my candy girl.
And you got me rocking you.
Break it down, won't you please?
We discussed a lot of Archie's past in this video, but if you want an in-depth analysis of the new Riverdale show, make sure to go check out Jeff's video where he tells you how much it sucks and how you're wrong for liking it. I pop up over there in that video because I also have words to say about that show. Even though he is a longtime Archie fan, it's kind of a new topic for both of us to make videos about. Jeff makes some truly amazing videos analyzing anime. I can't get enough of them, and I don't even watch anime. They're just that good. We'll have his video linked in the description below and on the end card. And also, I just wanted to say that there was 75 years of history that I had to dig through for this video, so there are no doubt hardcore Archie fans in the comments writing about how could you possibly skip over Harry Lucy or something. A lot got cut out, and potentially some of it was incorrect. I do the best that I can, and I leave you with my sources in the description below, so you can do further reading if you wish. As always, I want to thank our patrons who make these videos possible. The names of those wonderful nerds are right here. Special shout outs to Alberto Ramirez, Christopher Lang, Patrick Cattery, Elizabeth Monsell, and Austin Rogers. I'll see you guys next week for a new video. In the meantime, I'm Scott, reminding you to read between the panels and grow smarter through comics. See ya.